I met my second Taekwondo master instructor from Korea, Great Grandmaster Dan Choi. He taught me the highest values of martial arts training of honor, loyalty, family, and bravery. He was an old school martial artist that focused in on mastery, perfection, and paying attention to detail of every single movement, otherwise more practice, especially mastering the art of jump kicks. Grandmaster Choi didn't speak that much, so I learned to develop my WCWMA 7 sense to do the right thing without being told, otherwise he would have that certain look on his face that you would pay for it in his class. I remember him having me come to his office and sit. I did that for an hour, and he didn't say one thing. I just sat there watching him read his book. Then he said, "Go home." I guess it was a lesson in sitting still. I had so much love for Great Master Choi. He was like my father. I wanted to be his champion. He was a small man and quiet, but his power of presence and his execution of martial arts was gigantic and powerful. He truly loved his students and is a role model of true mastery. Also at San Jose State is where I met my lifetime friend for 53 years, Great Grandmaster Kwanjum Tony Thompson. Who would ever think that two poor kids from the ghetto that were both on food stamps and welfare during college would eventually be able to impact and empower the martial arts industry and make a positive difference in the world. Baby Kwanjum Tony, aya!
What do you remember most about your mom?
Mom. Well, Mom taught us a lot of things. What Mom really taught us was, as a family, how to take care of each other.
So what is the greatest life lesson, would you say, that your mom instilled in you as a young kid that you're pretty much even like carrying on to this present day and time?
Two things. First thing she taught really was that family matters. Once you get your family together and really focus in on that, everything else is pretty good because you have to make sure that it's taken care of. The second thing she taught me, I think, was education. She always told me, if you have education, they can never ever take it away from you. And if you want to be successful in life, you have to make sure that you're educated, and therefore if we're educated, then our kids and everybody else in our family would have a better life.
One of the greatest moments of my life is when I really had the opportunity to train with you and to really meet Master Choi. And those were the roots of where we both came from. And so what do you think about Master Choi, and our adventure of, the beginnings of where we came from and where we are at this point in time?
Master Choi, he didn't say much, but he would look at you, and we knew that he was such a traditionalist. He had an eye for detail. Even when we had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go over to the college, and we'd be running around the field, jumping and kicking trees. You remember those days? I know. We'd be doing this stuff. He had such an eye for detail. He would never let us get away with anything. And I think we took that part of his being a detailed person and traditionalist, and we put it in our lives without us even realizing it.
Exactly.
So, he taught us not only martial arts, he taught us about life.
I can remember when we tested in front of Great Grandmaster Choi and his brother for our next high-ranking black belt. We were so both very nervous. Everyone was deadly serious, and there was a high level of respect, discipline, and honor for our black belt test and for Great Grandmaster Choi. No one was invited to come and watch. Now we have the world watching our virtual WCWMA Mastery Test of 2020. I believe we've had over 10,000 views of our Mastery Test. Our traditional Taekwondo test consisted of forms, 8 Palge forms, then we had to do 4 Chumo forms. That added up to 12 forms. Jump kicks was Great Grandmaster Choi's specialty. Great Grandmaster Tony Thompson, back then was just known as Tony, and he had the hops, and he could jump so high. Then we'd have to do all the basic kicks, front, side, round, back kicks, and up and down the floor for eternity. Then we did something called one-step attack, sparring, board breaking, and brick breaking. Our WCAA current black belt test has so much more martial arts curriculum that I wish we could have started back then. But What Great Grandmaster Choi taught us about respect and discipline was second to none. Tony and I, me known back then as Oni to Great Grandmaster Choi, wanted so much to have our Great Grandmaster be proud of us as we did our best to test in front of him. We loved Great Grandmaster Choi for teaching us his old ways of martial arts training. Tough love. One of my first young black belts was Dino Rodriguez, 12 years old. Dino had amazing martial arts skills, beautiful flying jump kicks, but more importantly, he was so honorable and respectful. I can remember when Great Grandmaster Choi gave me his Campbell school, and at that time, it wasn't doing well. It was hard for me to make $315 monthly rent. I needed a loan to remodel my school. Dino, my student as a young boy, offered me his paperboy money, savings of $1,000. I couldn't believe he would do that. Dino was my role model of excellence for my other first-degree black belts. Margie Betke, Scott Coker, George Chung, Gary Nakahama, Belinda Davis, Steve McKinney, and Ernie Reyes Jr. They all wanted to kick just like Dino. My dad, even during his golden age, came to my martial arts school to help us build it out. Those are golden memories that I'll always cherish forever. Eventually, Dino grew into a kind and caring man, always ready to give unconditional love to people in time of need. Without Dino's generous offerings, there might have not been a WCWMA association of today, celebrating our WCWMA supreme legacy. I will always be indebted to Quantum Dino's 7 cents coming from his heart for giving his unconditional love, not only to me, but to our entire WCWMA association. Also, at this challenging time in my life, when my first martial arts school was barely surviving, I was also competing in Taekwondo tournaments and became the national Taekwondo champion in sparring. As I was getting ready to compete in the World Championships, I went to Garden City Boxing Club in downtown San Jose with boxing coach Gus Spencer. Then some of my other black belts also started to come and train with me. They were my training partners. They were Yui Dang and Tony Thompson. They followed me, then others in the association, Sam Montgomery and Javier Mendez, went there to train also. You can see back then, I was shadowboxing, which is solo training. This is the way we have to adapt to train for our mastery tests and black belt tests because of the COVID-19 pandemic social distancing orders. This video was taken 43 years ago. There wasn't any mixed martial arts training at that time, but I had already started creating our WCWMA mixed martial arts system that can now adapt to any style of martial arts today. Going to the boxing gym was a great way to condition myself and to get the feeling of full contact on my body. No Taekwondo champions were doing boxing as a method of their training. As I look back on my skill set 4 decades ago, I realize today that I'm again still teaching these same boxing techniques to our mastery testers and black belt candidates of our historical mastery test of 2020. I was doing my best to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. I can remember training for my world championships. I even went to Korea to train with the Korean national coach and their world champions. Master Ko created a dynasty of champions, and I trained with him in a dark, stinky, run-down gym in a cellar. It was over 100 degrees down there, and the humidity was the same. Master Ko and his champions were impressed with my techniques and how I could adapt to their training quickly. I even threw a flurry of combination of boxing hands at them. That caught them off guard since they only punch with one single punch. I could sense that Master Ko enjoyed teaching me because I was extremely respectful to him and his fighters. Those old school values of martial arts was instilled in me by Great Grandmaster Moses Arizmendi and Great Grandmaster Dan Choi, and they could see it in my spirit, being a Filipino American. I can also remember when I came back from Korea I did 3-a-day trainings, starting at 5:30 a.m. in the morning, with my roommate and training partner, Yu Dan. Sometimes we'd wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, running up the hills of Cupertino. Then our second training was at San Jose City College, where we met Tony Thompson, when he finally rolled out of bed and woke up. Then we would beat up on each other, sparring, sometimes doing kicks all around the track, 440 yards. I was thinking, when the Koreans, who were the favorites, and other champions in other nations were sleeping, I would be training. Not just my body, but more importantly, my master's mindset and warrior spirit to never give up in martial arts and in life.